Throughout our history, there have been turning points. Throughout our history, there have been turning points. And each time, Canada chose to step up, to assert ourselves as a free, sovereign, and ambitious nation, to lead the path of democracy and freedom, and, because we are Canadian, to do so with compassion and generosity. We will chart a new path forward, because this is Canada, and we decide what happens here. No, we're not always perfect, but we always strive to be good. We do things because they're right, not because they're easy. That we see kindness as a virtue, not as a weakness.
So that was Prime Minister Mark Carney's election night speech, April 28th, 2025. It sounded pretty inspiring. The man talked about compassion, generosity, kindness, being good as a strength, as a virtue, not a weakness. He talked about Canada, that we decide what happens here. That was April 28th, 2025. Now listen to November 29th, 2025 at the Parliamentary Press Gallery dinner.
There have been a few surprises during my first months as Prime Minister. For example, I hadn't expected to spend so much time dealing with wildlife. Belugas, ostriches, premiers, except for present company accepted.
Mark Carney laughed about the slaughter of over 300 healthy animals. Mark Carney laughed about the destruction of a Canadian family. Mark Carney laughed about the heartache of thousands of Canadians. You know, it's one thing for our Prime Minister to ignore this family that for 10 months begged and pleaded for help. It was one thing for Mark Carney to ignore thousands of Canadians begging for help. It was one thing for Mark Carney to side with the World Organization for Animal Health. It was one thing for Mark Carney to ignore the fact that these animals were healthy for the last 10 months. It was one thing for Mark Carney to ignore the fact that in about 50 days on December 30th, these animals would have been clear of any recommendations from the World Organization for Animal Health culling policy. It was one thing for Mark Carney to ignore the opening that the United States gave him to not kill these animals when they offered to help. It was one thing for Mark Carney to choose global interests and not Canadians, as we were told he would do. It was one thing to be let down and lied to by a politician. Canadians, we're used to that. It's another thing entirely different for this man to laugh. For this man to laugh about the destruction of 300 healthy animals. Mark Carney said it. We decide what happens here. As our leader, you decided what happened here. You killed these animals, Mr. Carney. You did it yourself. The assassins that went into those kill pens that were designed and herded these animals and shot them in the dead of the night with low caliber bullets so that these animals didn't die immediately. They cried and they bled over the next few hours so these disgusting assassins could come in the next morning and finish them off. While the family cried in the fields, while supporters cried on the highway. You did this. You decided what happens here. You said it yourself. So again, it's one thing for you to lie to us and to let us down as a prime minister. For you to laugh about it? What kind of a scumbag do we have as our Prime Minister? What kind of a absolutely horrible human being do we have leading our country that he would think it's funny 3 weeks after the event when animals were butchered? What kind of a Prime Minister would make a joke about it? That's the Prime Minister of Canada, folks. That's Mark Carney. That's Mark Carney, who stands in a pulpit and acts like a nice man. This is the Mark Carney that all you Liberal supporters are so proud of. Mark Carney. Listen to what that man just did. Listen to him laughing at the heartache of a Canadian family. It's one thing to ignore them. That's what we expect from a politician. To laugh at their heartache is disgusting. You are disgusting, Mr. Carney. So here's the thing, Canadians that are animal lovers, that are broken by what we did, by what our Prime Minister did, you have an opportunity now. There's an election coming up sometime. 6 months from now, a year from now, 3 years from now, it is going to happen. If you've never voted before, you vote now. If you've never voted before because the next party is going to let you down, and you're right, because they always do, you vote now. You vote now to send this animal killer home. You vote in this election to send every one of his Liberal MPs out of Parliament. You vote as an animal lover. You pick up the phone to all your friends and you tell them vote. You tell this government we don't accept killers in Parliament. You vote them out. And until the next election, you let him know what you think. If you're a Canadian and Mark Carney or his wife, who also stands up on a soapbox as a wonderful representative of our country, if you're in Canada and they're speaking, if you're around the world and you are sickened, if you're disgusted by what Canada did and what our Prime Minister did, you let them know. Every time they speak, you yell out ostrich killer, you yell out animal killer, you yell out scumbag. You let these people know what kind of human beings we think they are. Every opportunity you have to let them know what you think, you yell. His Facebook page, every time he posts something about what wonderful Mark Carney is doing, you let him know. You post pictures of dead ostriches. Create an image that says animal killer, scumbag, because that's what this man is. It's one thing for our Prime Minister to kill healthy animals under the auspices of the World Organization for Animal Health. He had every opportunity to stop this, and that was bad enough. He laughed. He reveled in it. He spit in your face. Think about that, Canada. You think about it. Remind him every single day. Remind this man what he thinks is funny, you don't.
I want to know what pain looks like, Canada.
The end of a saga that began last December when dozens of birds died on the Universal Ostrich Farm.
She's going to lose everything she's ever loved for 35 years.